Hey, this is Double R. I wanted to tell you that Anchor by Spotify is a great and easy way to make a podcast with everything you need and all in one place. Anchor has the tools to allow you to record, edit your podcast straight from your phone or your computer. When hosting with Anchor, you can distribute your podcast to all listening platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Best of all, it's totally free. So go down the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. This is the Let's Roll Podcast with your host, Double R. What's up, everybody? It's me, your host that rolls the most, Double R, and this is the Let's Roll Podcast. Just want to give you a little heads up, or a little where have I been speech. Well, I've been pretty lazy, to say the least. Took a little break. Within that break, I got caught up playing my new video game, WWE 2K22. Kind of been playing that for a little bit. Also, I got to record 2 episodes with a good friend of mine that I started a podcast with way back in the day. Unfortunately, it didn't last very long, but we got to reconnect. So he came in and recorded a couple episodes with me, and those won't be coming out probably until later. They'll first hit my Patreon, and also the old episodes of the original podcast will only be available on Patreon. So if y'all want to hear the original podcast, it'll be on Patreon. But that's what I've kind of been up to. Just taking a break, taking it easy. But today's episode will be titled, I Don't Have Kids. I discuss why I don't have kids, but do have nephews and how they are like the closest thing to having kids, and much more in this episode right after this. Alright, let's talk about why I don't have kids. Well, one major thing, the reason I don't have kids, is I can't have them myself. No, I'm just joking. No, one of the major reasons I would say, well, not a major reason, because obviously I need somebody to have kids with. But that being said, I've never, I'm not going to say I never wanted kids, because I'd like to have some kids of my own and raise them and hope that that when I raise them, they would be good human beings. But the main reason, or we'll say the hesitancy of having kids, is it all depends on who I'm having kids with, and I don't mean like their personality or if I get along with them or, whatever. I'm mainly talking about if they have OI or don't have OI. And if they have OI, there's a very real reality that the children that we have, if everything is okay with my partner in having kids, and I say having kids as in naturally having kids, like having kids on our own, those kids would have a Y. If I'm with someone that doesn't have a Y, there's still a 50-50 chance that our children would have a Y. So it's always in the back of my head, do I want to bring somebody else into this world that has a Y? I'll say it like this, not that I have my struggles with OI, but they're my own, it's the only thing I've ever known is having a Y, so I don't know any different, so I've handled it. I've had really good parents that were good about not, like, oh, you have a Y, you can't do this, can't do that, blah, blah, blah. They dealt with it pretty good, and I know I would deal with it pretty good. Now, when I was married, as y'all know in past episodes, I briefly talked about my ex-wife here and there. We discussed having kids, but early on, that kind of was it basically early on, it became that she couldn't have children. So that was like, okay, well, we won't have kids of our own, but we could have still adopt or something like that. But unfortunately, our marriage didn't last, and it never got to that level to where we were like, okay, let's go and adopt somebody. But even when I was married and the thought of having a child, I was basically the one that didn't have a job. I was the one that was staying at home. My wife was, she worked, and I kind of sat there and thought, well, if we had a child, or even a baby for that matter, I would be home taking care of it. And can I physically, or would I physically be able to handle a baby or a child, on my own? I'm sure I could have figured out different ways to make it a little bit easier on me, especially when the child was a baby. Once the child started getting to where it could walk and crawl and all that might be a little bit more difficult, but I'm sure I would have adapted and figured out a way, but it was still a concern. So the conversation, really, had we had the conversation a couple of times about having children, and, but it never came to fruition that we would have kids. So the next best thing that I had to kids, I'll talk about right after this. So if you can't have kids of your own, you raise your nephews. Jokingly. No, I have an older brother, and he has 2 sons, and they were the closest thing to children, or the experience of having children that I could have early on, like especially when they were younger. I went over a lot of times and watched them, babysit them. And then, of course, when they got old enough to where they could, basically walk and talk and go to the bathroom pretty much on their own. I mean, I'm not saying I just always sent them into a bathroom by themselves, but I didn't have to go in there to help them go to the bathroom. So I would, watch them. I'd babysit them and stuff. When they were younger, the only difficulties I had with them, especially when they were in diapers, was changing their diapers and whatnot. So my sister-in-law always had a backup plan, or a neighbor, a neighbor in their neighborhood, set up to where when I needed that done, or, something like that. So if I needed something, as in diaper change or anything with the kids, I could simply just call and they'd come over and help me. So that was early on. My nephews worshiped me. I used to, as a kind of a joke, when they got a little bit older and they understood, they had seen Austin Powers, and I used to just point my finger down to the ground, and they would drop to their knees, going, "We're not worthy. We're not worthy." It was funny. But they were the closest thing to children I had, and there were several times that I had more disciplinary control with them than even their own parents in certain cases, certain times. Not all the time. Obviously, I wasn't around them all the time. But when I was around and they, acted up, or they weren't minding or whatever, I was able to, just look at them and say in a stern, low tone, "Hey, what did I tell you to do?" And they would say, "Yes, sir." And, but they were the closest things I had kids. And, I had a fairly close relationship with my oldest nephew. And I wouldn't say it's not a super close relationship now, but we get along really well together. We can joke and have fun and hang out occasionally. We haven't done that in a long time. And if you're listening to this, T-Ray, you need to come hang out with your uncle. I know you want to do a podcast episode with me, so come do that. My youngest nephew, Ryan, we get along okay, but I was basically closer to Tanner than I was Ryan, but I love them both. Now we have this joking thing that we say in our family that I can love you, but I ain't gotta like you. And I will add to that. I will say this: I don't like, certain people or just people in general. There are times I don't like them. Doesn't mean I don't love them. Doesn't mean I don't care about them. Doesn't even mean I won't even hang out with them. Because there's different levels to my like. The highest level borderlines hate, but I don't like to use the word hate. Occasionally I do, but I don't really ever say that I hate anyone or anything for that matter. I mean, I don't like it. I won't, if it's something like food, I won't eat it if I don't like it. If it's, a TV show or a movie or music or something like that, video game, etc. If I don't like it, I just don't play it. I don't watch it. I don't listen to it. If it's people, depending on my level of like or dislike, there is I'll still hang out with you. I might not like everything you do, but it's not a deal breaker for our relationship or our friendship. But if it's reached a high dislike, then you can pretty much just say that if I saw you, I would say, hi, how you doing? But that's about it. I'm not going to say, hey, let's get together. I'm not going to say, let's go hang out. I'm not going to call you. I practically just cut you out of my life on a social and a relationship level. But again, if I saw you somewhere and we crossed paths, I would be like, hey, how's it going? Whatever. Now, there are some people in this world that I wouldn't even do that. And that's just because they've done me wrong, like really bad. So don't even think you're going to get a hello from me now. But let's get back on the subject of, my nephews and kids and stuff. So, both of my nephews are, mean the world to me. I'm very proud of both of them. What they have accomplished and what they've overcome in their lives and etc. Now, I have a new, I think he's 2 years old, maybe 3, I don't know. I think he's 2. I have a great nephew, which is Ryan, my youngest nephew's baby boy, and his name is Shiloh. I haven't got to hang out with Shiloh very much. I haven't got to see him very much. Part of the reason was COVID came around the time that he, I think he was born the year before, and then COVID came, and that kind of limited us for seeing him and stuff like that. And we just haven't had very many interactions or seen him that many times. And hopefully that will change, and I'll get to know my great nephew a little bit, and he'll get to go and hang out with Uncle Rusty or Uncle Double R. I'm gonna tell a couple of different stories about how I am able to handle kids that are, not doing what they're told or acting up. And I'll do that right after this. So my concern has always been, if I had kids, would I be able to, handle everything, from anything from taking care of them to discipline to, whatever. Early on, especially when my first nephew was born, and it was one time at the house, my brother and sister-in-law and Tanner, as a baby, was over here, and I think Tanner was doing something. Now, when I say he's a baby, he wasn't. I don't even think he was talking yet. But I mean, he could understand when he was, like not to do something or do something, whatever. But anyway, he was doing something. I don't remember what it was, and I was just, like kind of letting him get away with it. And my brother goes, "Hey, if you don't do something, he's never going to learn to, basically respect you or listen to you." In this family, we got spankings growing up. So, as far as I know, my brother, I know he spanked both of his boys, but I don't think it was very often. It more came down to, you're grounded, you can't do this, blah, blah, blah. But that particular day, I kind of swatted Tanner and told him no. And I would say, really, and I'm not saying that really worked that day, but even from that day, it seemed like he knew not to mess with me as far as don't test me. As Tanner got older, I can tell you right now that I didn't really have to yell at anybody. I didn't have to cuss at them. I didn't have to scream at them. Majority of the time with Tanner, I would just grab his arm if I was close enough to grab him. But I would grab his arm, pull him close, and say, "What did I tell you to do?" And he said, "Yes, sir." Like, he acknowledged, "Okay, yeah, you mean business now." And that carried on over to Ryan. Ryan kind of learned that from me handling Tanner, and Tanner, I guess, probably passed on to him, like, "Hey, Uncle Rusty's not to mess with. Like, he means business." One time, the boys, I was over at their house, and it was the boys, me, and my sister-in-law, and they spouted off, talked back to my sister-in-law, and I just looked at them and said, "Hey, who do you think you're talking to?" And they were like, "No one." I said, "Apologize and do what you're told." So they said they were sorry, and they went ahead and did what they told. One of my stories I love to tell was, I was coming out to my parents' house, and I had my youngest nephew Ryan with me, and we were going to come out here and get something or do something, and then the plan was to leave here, go to Walmart to pick up some other stuff, and then go back to my apartment. Well, when we came over here, my nephew was about 5 or 6 years old. I mean, he has, toys here and riding toys and stuff here at Grandma and Pawpaw's house, right? So he went out. When I went inside to get whatever, he was out in the backyard. My dad was out there cleaning the pool or doing something right there by the pool. And so Ryan went and got on his riding toy. He was riding around on it. And then when I came out the house, I said, "Okay, Ryan, let's go." And he said, "I want to take my toy." And I said, "No, come on, we got to go." And he started to throw a fit. Well, my dad went to say something, and I threw my hand up like to tell my dad to stop. And I told Ryan, I said, "Okay, Ryan, if you take your toy, we're not going to Walmart. If you don't take your toy, we'll go to Walmart. Which is it going to be?" And Ryan looked at me and goes, "Let's go to Walmart." So I said, "Okay, go put your toy up and get your butt in the van." So he said, "Okay." And my dad was looking at me like, "You didn't even have to yell at him. You didn't have to raise your voice. You didn't have to say anything bad. You just basically, like, I handled it with no aggression." And he couldn't understand how I could do that. And that was kind of funny to me, because my dad had always been like, when he gets mad, and he's not holding back. And he he just couldn't understand it. And then I have all kinds of stories like that where I've I've handled the situation. And another story I'll tell real quick wasn't even my nephews. These were some neighborhood kids that a neighbor of ours was watching, and she showed up at our house, and or my house is when I was married, and showed up at the house, the trailer that we were living in, knocked on the door, and she's all distraught, and she's trying to desperately get hold of these kids' mother, because she was only supposed to watch them for about an hour, and here it is several hours later, and she can't get a hold of the mother, can't find the mother, and she needs to use the phone, blah, 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 blah. And these kids are kind of acting up a little bit, and she's trying to keep them, like, chill out, I just need to make the phone call, blah, blah, blah. And I looked at her and I said, do you want me to handle that? And she kind of looked at me like, yeah, okay, well, if I can't handle it, what makes you think you can handle it? And I basically said in a very low tone, direct to them, looked at them, and I basically told both of them to go. I told one to go sit on the couch and the other one to go sit somewhere else. I told them not to move unless I told them to move. And they just went and did it, and they're looking at me the whole time. And my neighbor's looking at me going, what? How did you do that? And my response to her, and my response would be to anybody right now, would be, first of all, I haven't raised any kids, right? I don't have any kids. We've talked about it. I mentioned it. We don't have kids. I have nephews that are the closest things to kids. I've had other, like, neighbor kids and other young adults or young teenagers and stuff that I've considered my friends. I mean, my kids, or, like my kids, but I've never had any. But the one thing I could constantly tell somebody is you just got to follow through. No matter what it is you tell them, you just got to follow through with it. You can't tell the kid that something's going to happen, and if they don't do it, this is what's going to happen, and they don't do it, and you don't follow up. Like, for an example, if I was a parent and I told my child, hey, if you don't clean up your room by 10 o'clock tonight, you're not going to be able to go to the party next week. And then when the party comes around and you've made some plans that kind of interferes with the fact that your child can't go because he didn't do what you told him, and you went ahead and let him go to the party, then he doesn't learn anything. And that's another thing. Don't punish your children if you ain't willing to suffer the consequences that you put on yourself. So all I'm trying to say is that you follow through with whatever you say. So that's one thing. The other thing, along with these two kids that I told to go sit in different places and not move and don't say anything or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And my neighbor goes, how did you do that? Well, one, they don't know me. They don't know who I am. They have no idea what's going to happen if they don't, because I didn't even say what would happen if they didn't. I just said, just sit down and be quiet and don't say anything and don't move unless I tell you to. That's all I said. I didn't say, if you don't do this, this is going to happen. So they don't know me. They don't know what I'm going to do. And a little bit, and I got this from a movie, and sometimes it really kind of speaks the truth. They're listening to me because I'm on their level. I'm small. I'm about their height. I'm not necessarily their size, but I'm just small. And I'm not an adult looking down on them. I'm not yelling at them. So I'm speaking to them, but not in a like heightened speech or anger or aggression. I'm just giving them an order, like a drill sergeant, just give you an order. I'm like, you do it, or you decide we're going to take a chance not to do it to see what happens. So that's my point. My point is that they don't know who I am, what I'm about, what I'm going to do, what's going to happen. Now, I'm sure throughout the day, Donna, which was my neighbor, was 1 minute telling them not to do something, and they wouldn't, they went ahead and did it, and she didn't have any recourse. She didn't have any follow-up with it. Like, I told you not to do this, and they knew that they could just keep getting away with it. Now, if one of them would have been brave enough to, say, challenge me, then there might, there would be some sort of follow through. Now, obviously, I'm not going to hit the child because it's not my child. But I would definitely go, no, you're not going to do that with me. And I don't know exactly what I would do in the moment. But again, I don't think they wanted to challenge me because they didn't know who I was. I was a totally different person than somebody they've never seen and never done. And so they were listening to me. Donna, they're not going to listen to because they've been with her all day and she's been letting them get away with murder. So I've always had that effect on children that I don't know, that I can, if they're doing something, I can just, say something to them, and it's not out of anger, it's not yelling or anything. I mean, I might raise my voice, but it's not in a yelling style or a heightened style. But I've always been able to get kids to mind me, And on the opposite end of that, or opposite side of that, most kids want to get to know me and they like me, I'm cool. I'm the cool dude, But they also know that I mean business. Now, I just a little advertisement here. I mentioned in the beginning of the episode, or before the episode actually started, that I had a friend come in, do a couple of episodes with me that when we started the podcast. Well, the other thing that we did, and that we did an episode on, is that we coached youth basketball. And in that episode, we talk about how we had to deal with the kids and how the dynamic changed once we realized we couldn't be their best friends or, buddy anymore. We had to change that dynamic in order for the kids to learn and respect authority and this and that and another. I'm not going to go deep into in this episode, but that is an episode that I encourage y'all to listen to. It'll be called The Disabled Coach. Again, it won't come out anytime soon. I have it scheduled for May, but it's possible it could be moved up because I have 2 episodes that I got to edit with him. So, but yeah, I mean, you can't be a child's buddy or best friend without them understanding, hey, I'll be your friend, I'll be your buddy, I'll be there for you, I'll take care of you, you'll be safe with me, but there are rules and things that you have to do, and you have to learn to respect the authority and the rules and that I set forth. And knowing that there are consequences to every action, for every action you decide that you want to take, there's going to be a reaction or a consequence. Sometimes it's going to be good, sometimes it's going to be bad. It all depends on it's your choice, so to speak. But that's me with no kids, how I feel about kids, how I would raise them. There's probably a lot more I could talk about, but I'm trying to keep these episodes a little shorter. But again, that's why I don't have kids, what I would do if I had kids, and my feeling on how to, a part of it is how to raise kids. Now, again, I don't have kids, so I can't tell you exactly how to raise them, but I learned from my parents, grandparents, teachers, just bosses. I've learned things over my life that I can now, in return, apply to, being around kids, raising kids. If I ever had the case where I had kids to raise or whatever, I think I got a pretty good head on my shoulders to be able to do that. I'm not going to say I'm going to be an expert, but that's my view. That's my knowledge and my view and my experience from not having kids to wanting to have kids. With that being said, hey, make sure you check us out on our website, the Let's Roll Podcast.com. Check us out on all of our social media. One more thing. I am going to start only uploading once a week. One episode a week, and then older episodes that are from the past get uploaded to our YouTube channel. Just another way for y'all to listen to them. I'm constantly trying to work on things and make things better. Remember the original podcast that I mentioned at the beginning of the episode with my friend T. Rich? At least that's his show name. But that original podcast will be uploaded to Patreon for Patreon members to listen to if they want. Actually, the very first episode is already up on Patreon, so you can check that out. With that being said, as always, until next time, let's roll. Hey guys, Double R here, and make sure you check us out on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Patreon, and our merch store. Follow us on all of our social media.